The killer accidentally overheard Thompson's phone call to Vivian Ames, a phone call setting up a perfect alibi for him. So he opened the door, went in, and then he killed Ned Thompson.
No, I didn't do those things. I didn't kill Ned Thompson.
And you didn't plant Fallon's note in his pocket?
No!
No, Mr. Nichols. You didn't kill Thompson. But you did, Mr. Wells.
Yes! Yes, I killed Ned Thompson! I killed him! I killed him! I killed him! I killed him!
Hey, before we get into the content of the video today, I just want to say this Friday we'll be having Tony Altimore on. He's got a new slide, and I don't know if it's informed by the video. I said, it'd be kind of interesting to have a sabermetrics type number assigned to each team and rank them as far as how attractive they are in realignment. I reached out to him and said, hey, I'd love to have you on to talk about that, talk about how these numbers were calculated. So he'll be coming on this Friday on the channel. We'll be doing a live show 8 p.m. Definitely show up. We'll be taking questions. So if you have something you want to ask Tony, should be a good time. Let's get to it. I've said this is the most tumultuous time in college football history. Here's something I haven't said that I should have said. And that's that this is the weirdest time in college football history and really in the ACC, right? I picked that clip for a reason. I haven't really seen this from the Clemson fan base as much, though you can find it. More so with Florida State fans, they're looking for this Perry Mason moment. Not even we haven't even got to the court case. We're just going through legal filings and the very beginning stages. And you're seeing show after show after show, even like ESPN, we're not talking about college football. I mean, think if I would have told you 10 years ago that at this point in 2024, the commentary on college football would be in nitty-gritty legal proceeding filing like procedures. You'd have been like, first of all, there's no way. Second of all, that sounds incredibly boring. Why would anyone want to listen to that? Because that's where we're at. Not like we're into the civil proceedings. We're going through legal filings. Now, I've been very critical of the ACC, and I stand by that. I think that the ACC allowed things to get to this point by inaction. And this is just a general truth for anyone that needs to hear it. Not making a decision is making a decision. All right? Not making a decision can be worse than making a bad decision sometimes. That's probably the case with the ACC. But now I want to go the other direction because I do think, and I'm talking about more Florida State and some Clemson fans, some Florida State and some Clemson fans are as unreasonable as they perceive the ACC to be. In the last video I made on this, I said just because something's in a legal contract doesn't necessarily mean it's binding. That's true. We gave the example of like gross negligence is not covered in a contract. You can't assume to be an expert in the risk you're taking. But also, just because there are things in a contract that you don't like doesn't mean that the contract is BS either. I do think it's not great that all the schools that are a part, except for the ones that were just added, signed this twice. You had the smartest lawyers that money can afford look over it, give you their opinion, and then you signed it. Now, what they're going to say is, well, the ACC, the ACC did not live up to their fiduciary responsibilities. Now, I hope you can see that this is subjective. We talked about this. I did a live show Friday afternoon. There is a reason these lawyers demand $1,000 an hour, whatever they make. And that is because none of this is clear cut. Perry Mason moments don't really exist in a courtroom. I'm not saying they don't happen, but it is rare that you get this gotcha. And that's what some of these Florida State and Clemson fans are looking for. Like, oh, the lawyer for my school is going to make some argument in filing briefs that gets us out of the ACC. It's not going to happen. There are some that think this is their last year in the ACC. I think that's crazy, honestly. First of all, I think it's untrue. We had Florida State fans telling us August 24th of last year, it's it. There's going to be this big thing like a Perry Mason moment. And I hope you realized in the clip, like he's questioning someone who's not even a witness. He's questioning two people at a time, one of which is not even a witness. And that's like what they're looking for. I don't think you're going to get that. This is very complicated. First of all, you've got to demonstrate this fiduciary responsibility. I guess if you're Florida State, Clemson's just saying the whole thing is bogus on the face of it. There is going to be a lot of time and a lot of money spent making these arguments. I've got an article here, and this is actually from Tomahawk Nation, kind of going over some of this, even including North Carolina's descent in the ranks. But guys, it's not going to be just, oh yeah, everything's fine. First of all, I think you're going to have to pay something. And it's not just going to be, oh yeah, some very simple thing in the next 5 days or next even year is going to come out. And that's going to clearly get you out of the grant of rights. Or if you're the ACC, clearly get them in. It's not going to happen that way. Let's go look at this article. Again, this is from Tomahawk Nation. Yeah, South Park Snow Day comes out. I want to play that. This is a round table. It says Florida State ACC finally head to court. Clemson files its own lawsuit. Now, this was before the legal proceedings that happened Friday, I believe. So obviously there's some more up-to-date information on this. And it's a question, let's see, I don't know if these two guys are legal experts. Anyways, it says, what are your big picture thoughts on how things have transpired between FSU and the ACC since the Board of Trustees meeting in December? This guy, John, says, the filings have largely devolved into a tit-for-tat name-calling at this point. While I have enjoyed things like John Swofford's shady dealings finally being called out publicly, I'm not sure how much it will really matter in the end. FSU's best shot is Jim Phillips unilaterally extending the ACC option. That is a very significant point that isn't hindered by any statute of limitations. So I'm going to assume these guys know what they're talking about, particularly in legal proceedings. Again, in 2024, the whole college football narrative is being driven by very, archaic, nitty-gritty legal terms. The John Swofford stuff, I did say, was probably the strongest point, not being disclosed, his relationship with president of Bally Sports. But evidently there's a statute of limitations on that. That's what this guy John is saying. And this ACC option doesn't have that. Perry says, for all the hand-wringing over Florida State being too loud, it seems as if one by one, the big names being cited as desirable by their conferences are starting to copy off the university's homework. Yeah, it is. It has been annoying if you're not in that select group, right, of the desirable teams in realignment. I don't really care. Like, I get why Florida State's doing it. To me, the too loud part of Florida State that's annoying is like, oh yeah, this is just going to be clear cut. We're getting out yesterday. That's insanity. That's insanity. That's wishful thinking. And I think you need to check it. What is the biggest hurdle FSU is going to have to overcome, not just in the hearing today, but in the larger case against the ACC? John says the biggest issue is that so many egregious actions by John Swofford and the ACC were so long ago, it will be hard to get around the statute of limitations. I wish they would state what the statute of limitations is and specifically what law that breaks or how that goes again. I guess they're saying because that happens, it invalidates the grant of rights. I would love for nothing more than to have Swofford be deposed and make him say on the record how he screwed over the conference, but that has a 1% chance of happening. I kind of wouldn't mind that either. A lot of this kind of is on John Swofford's shoulders. There was clear nepotism that might lead to, in part, the end of the ACC. I have no love for John Swofford. This guy Perry says, for me, after reading a bunch of people smarter than me, getting the proper venue and judge presiding over the case will be a major factor in what ruling is issued, from financial implications to what is considered as actual damage. That's a big thing that's happening right now. One, I know that Florida State's lawyers are claiming the ACC improperly filed. They filed first. And it does seem like the ACC preemptively filed this lawsuit. Now, I don't know the details of it. I'm not a lawyer. So for all the people that want to comment, you don't know what you're talking about. You're not a lawyer. You're right. I doubt you are either, though. I doubt guy user 4423 kitty kitty lick lick exclam username is a lawyer either. I can tell you, just logically speaking, what seems to make sense. So the big thing, I think there's one filing in North Carolina. There's one in Florida. Obviously, if you're Florida State, you want this case to be heard in Florida. Initially, I think they were quite cordial in the North Carolina lawsuit, and Florida State's been much more adversarial in the Florida lawsuit. Are there any arguments in Clemson's lawsuit that you wish FSU brought up, and or are you surprised Clemson left out anything from the FSU lawsuit? John says, I like that Clemson's lawsuit is a bit more streamlined. It's focused solely on called the grant of rights what it is. Is that a typo? It focused solely on called the grant of rights what it is. All right, I get a Florida State. This is on a Florida State website. To me, maybe I'm the idiot. That's completely possible, but that sentence doesn't make sense. Basically, they're saying it's completely bogus and unenforceable. While I enjoyed Swofford and Raycom being called out, those complaints were most just playing to the crowd, because that'll be hard to prove unless they have an ace in the hole they haven't shown yet. All right. I'm going to be honest with you guys. That whole little paragraph was a complete disaster. Like, y'all can see it on the screen. You read it. Tell me if I'm the idiot. Point taken, though. I kind of agree with that. Clemson's lawsuit just kind of focuses on grant of rights, where it seems like Florida State, there's a lot of other moving pieces with it. It's a little more convoluted. Perry says, not so much as it being something Florida State could bring up, given the timing of the lawsuits, but it's really interesting to see Clemson call out the conference for proceeding with a lawsuit against Florida State without taking a vote. Now, I don't know what the precedent for that is. I think the ACC could give an argument that said, hey, because this is moving so quickly and because the stakes are so high, we didn't have time to take a vote. We had to act now in the best interest of the conference and the teams in it that aren't suing us, that aren't wanting to get out. Thoughts on North Carolina Board of Trustees Chair John Prayer's public comments about the ACC? Yeah, if you didn't know, North Carolina's AD basically came out and said, we support the ACC, and also, we want to do what's best for North Carolina. And then their Board of Trustees publicly admonished their own AD for saying that. So that's quite interesting. John says, UNC's very public rebuke of the Calvert expansion should have cued clued anyone as to how UNC felt about the current state of the ACC. I mean, let's be honest. Is anyone super thrilled with the current state of the ACC? Again, a year ago or so or more, we were all laughing at the Big 12. They're going to, the Big 12's over. Texas and Oklahoma are leaving. And to their credit, they went out. They got good schools to replace the ones they left with. They pulled in Pac-12 teams. They pulled in the better group of 5 teams. And they're in an infinitely better spot than the ACC. So, kudos to them. While UNC's football TV viewership leaves a lot to be desired, it is one of the last large public flagships universities that won't be affiliated with the bigger SEC. That may have to take a Washington-Oregon deal to get in, but they know they have a spot at the big kids table. I agree with that. Perry says the escalation of quiet barking. Let me just say this. This is a rant too. This has nothing to do with what I'm talking about, but there's all these new terms like quiet quitting, quiet this, stealth that. Shut up with all that. Just say you don't want to be there. I don't know why we have to have so many terms for just you don't want to be a part of something. Anyways, quiet barking to maybe you guys are right was pretty much funny to see. He's talking about the dissent, but it showcases just how dire the AC situation is, with the conference pretty much throwing in the towel officially on college football playoff payouts. The writing is on the wall for universities capable of finding greener pastures. Now, I don't think that's a fair representation of what happened. Yes, the ACC has screwed up, but the ACC, the Big 12 gets even less. The group of 5 gets any less, even less than that, like what, less than 10% in the college football playoff. Do you think that's because they don't want to? Do you think that's because they weren't willing to be vocal about how they felt about the inequity in the payout? No. It's because they have no power. It's because the fear is that the SEC and Big Ten would do their own thing. Just separate themselves from the NCAA and have their own league. I'm sure that was the threat. And they must have felt like it was a realistic threat. So I think if those 3 groups of people could have done anything about it, they would have. So characterizing it as, hey, they just threw in the towel, I think is disingenuous. You certainly could say, hey, you put yourself in a position to not have any power, though. That, I think, would be fair. And here we go. Will 2024 be Florida State's? Man, the grammar in this is awful. This should read, will 2024 be Florida State's final season playing ACC football? That's possessive. We need an apostrophe. I mean, I'm a math guy, and if I can find typos and grammatical errors, then you've really screwed the pooch. John says, I'm not as bullish as other prognosticators that this situation will be resolved before FSU kicks off the season in Dublin. Are you kidding me? There are really Florida State fans that think this situation will be resolved. Let's clearly state what they really mean by that. They're going to be out of the ACC. Not that 2024 is their last season. Before the first game, before we get to September, they're going to be out of the ACC. What? What? Bro, what? Let's all take a moment of silence for people that think that. All right, the SEC already announcing an 8-game 2025 conference schedule makes me think they're not planning on grabbing any ACC defectors that soon. I think FSU will have another lame duck season in 2025 unless a court says the grant of rights is completely invalid in the next 6 months. Perry says, I'm with John. The law doesn't exactly move quickly. And with cases as layered as this from various alleged damages, the parties involved, and the moving parts in terms of jumping ship to another conference, I would think that 2026 is likely the point where things kick into high gear. And I'll agree with that. If you're a Florida State fan or a Clemson fan that just thinks this is going to be resolved quickly, this is what I've been saying the whole time. They use the terms layered. These are complicated legal issues that are not going to be resolved quickly. If you think this is like your last year in the ACC, or God forbid that you're going to be out before the first game of the season, or you're one of the negative IQ'd people that thought you were going to be out before August of last year, I don't know what to tell you. It's almost like a cult. I don't throw that term around lightly, but it's almost like a cult where cognitive dissonance kicks in, and any evidence contrary to your preconceived beliefs just further entrench your beliefs in whatever crazy thing you think. It's like a mental Chinese finger trap. That's a great definition of cognitive dissonance, a mental Chinese finger trap. And some of these guys with this ACC stuff are certainly in it. Bonus question, is the ACC going to exist as a conference by the time the grant of rights expires in 2036? I don't even have to read that. No. It depends on what you mean by exist. If there's still a conference with the name ACC, maybe. But if what you mean is a conference, an ACC conference that's relevant, that retains the power that it has now or something comparable, no. All right. Then it goes through the timeline here. July 8, 2010. Do I really want to go through all this? Look, I don't. I don't want to go through all that. In conclusion, it is hilarious to me that all of the sudden a lot of Clemson and Florida State fans are legal experts, self-appointed legal experts. And they're such great lawyers, or they have such a high legal acumen, that they're going to tell you what the grant of rights says, even though the whole thing isn't public, and how it doesn't apply to them, even though their schools signed it twice. And as far as, hey, the ACC is screwing us financially, these other teams, the margin is so great. That in and of itself doesn't mean that the contract isn't binding either. Can we all say there's a difference between a bad contract, you sign a contract that's bad for you, and a contract that's non-binding? I think we have to say that for some people. Those are different things. Now, it might be proven that the grant of rights is non-binding. I don't know. Again, I'm one of the guys that'll admit I'm not a lawyer and I don't know. But up to this point, it's the best you can say is it's far less than clear. Okay? Just because other conferences are doing better than you doesn't mean the grant of rights doesn't apply to you. You sign this out to 2036. You would have to assume when you signed it, things could change a lot in 10 years in college football. So let me know what you guys think in the comments. I'm sure there'll be people that say, it's almost, again, like the Colts that keep predicting the end of the world. Hey, October 26th, the end of the world is coming. And then it doesn't happen and they keep pushing it back. I think Jehovah's Witnesses did this, and they just kept pushing the date back. Now you have some Florida and Clemson fans that do the same thing. It's crazy. I'm calling it a cult now. The cult of the ACC end times. See you guys later.